Chapter 1. You're Stuck with Me. The first thing I saw after I was reincarnated in a fantasy world is a serene ceiling and candles illuminating the room instead of LED bulbs. The clothes were woven from silk and brocade, and judging by the dull wooden utensils, it's clear that they're far removed from Earth's civilization. But hey, it's a fantasy world, so I guess I'm rich, right? It's a nice reincarnation for an overworked poor orphan. There was one thing that convinced me I was noble. It was my mother's beauty, my baby, my biological mother's dazzling smile as she looked at me. How could that face not be aristocratic? My future love life would be trouble-free. Year 3, I'm out of the cradle and out of the room. The world outside was so big and huge for a toddler. Young master, Mona my nanny gasped and picked me up, and that was how my first adventure ended. I shouldn't have dreamed of an adventure at this point. If I had known that real adventures are 100% real and 100% muddy, I wouldn't have gone through all that trouble. Year 6. Apparently, the house I was reincarnated into is one of the most famous in the kingdom, the Grand Duke of Dragonia. The family was founded by a legendary knight who slayed an evil dragon and bathed in its blood. The family has produced 4 kings since the kingdom had an elected monarchy. Year 8. I was expected to learn to wield a sword as the next knight of the kingdom. I was excited. A fantasy knight. Would I be able to draw a sword and put aura on it? The man who would teach me was Sir Gordic, a holy knight sent from the royal palace. But who was he? Huh? Holy knight? Year 10. It hurts. My whole body feels like it's going to break. I chose the knight's path, and now I'm getting beaten up by Gordic the Macho every day. It was nice to be a squire in the Grand Duke's favor, but every day was spent learning to wield a sword and ride a horse. Holy knights, yeah, they're like sword masters in fantasy. While the knights of this world are a bit different from my fantasy knights, the Holy Grail knights are truly monsters that are far from human. However, in order to become a holy knight, you must complete quests through training, become a knight of the kingdom, earn prestige and honor, and drink holy water by being chosen by the Holy Grail. You had to be strong, honorable, and faithful to become a holy knight, an otherworldly sword master. Damn it, I'm not religious. Year 14, every day is a pain. Aside from the bone-crushing training, there's a sense of accomplishment, though, because I can feel myself growing stronger with each passing day. It was bearable. The problem was discipline and study. I was a strong contender to be the next Grand Duke. Naturally, I had to learn everything there was to know about being a duke. How to rule the people, how to carry out the law, the philosophical debates between justice and law, how to treat a lady, and even how to study the Bible. In this world, there are many gods, and you pay tribute to them at their temples and do as they say. Gods, how fantastical. But me, I'm supposed to be recognized by the goddess of justice or something to be chosen for the Holy Grail. Year 16, I was wandering the world now. What? Isn't a 16-year-old a middle schooler? Coincidentally, I'm considered an adult in this world. The first requirement to become a Holy Grail Knight is to leave your training, protect the people of the kingdom, and complete an honorable quest. To fulfill that quest, I must find the goddess's alter ego. How do I find it? Just go around the kingdom and do my best to honor her, and she'll find you. I'll be damned. Year 17. Today I slaughtered some orcs, sons of bitches, warlike brutes. They invade the kingdom's borders on a random day and kill our people. If it weren't for them, the kingdom would be a peaceful place. Along the way, you cut down the orcs with Sir Gildas, Sir Antoine, and Gunnar the animated woodman, the guardian of the forest. Thank you, knights, thank you. Tend to the wounded and set the woods straight. The sword of the kingdom and the favor of the goddess be with you. I'm worried. The farmers have had a good year, and their taxes have kept the kingdom afloat, but the country has too many enemies. There are too many non-humans around. Year 20, I met a goddess. I'm not kidding. It was real. God was real. Wasn't religion supposed to be a way to enlighten and organize the ignorant? Heaven? Hall of Fame. Dinner with the gods? Weren't they all myths? The current king has been alive and ruling the kingdom for 110 years, but I thought he was a holy knight who did some kind of transmogrification trick. My current master, Sir Gordic, was a 90-year-old holy knight. Leon Dragonia, son of Archduke Wulfric Dragonia, I grant you a quest to prove your honor and faithfulness. Yes, by the command of the goddess. During my 4th year as an apprentice knight, I have finally met the goddess's alter ego. Ariana is real. I've slain orcs, torn goblins apart, slayed hordes of evil wizards, and defended the realm's territory. It wasn't all bad. Rather, it was good. The ringing of my name, the accolades, the admiration and respect that came with each honor made me shrug. Sir Gildas, son of Galbat the War Knight, Lord Antoine, guardian of the mines, and Gunnar the Tree Man, who was only 2 meters tall when I first saw him, but has since grown to be a 5-meter tree giant. I have been recognized by the Holy Grail and made a holy knight. Year 27. I am the youngest Orc Knight. I've decapitated an Orc warlord and wiped out a savage barbaric tribe. The Orcs would come in hordes of 100,000 or 200,000 whenever they attacked. The first thing I did when I became a Orc Knight, with the freedom to wage war and call my own knights, was to attack the Orcs. I buried 700,000 of the damned green-skinned bastards, men, women, and children. It made my blood boil. Year 35. The Honorable 14th Lionheart King, living saint and demigod, Argent Majesty Lionheart, has died. He died in battle against a great demon summoned on the fringes of the Empire. Orcs are a pain in the ass, but now demons were running amok. Those damned Imperial mages and their inquisitive minds leading them astray in their study of the dark arts. This is why people must believe in God and live a faithful life. It is because of their inherent curiosity and their futile pursuit of truth that the great devil has sliced 100,000 people into pieces. Apart from that, we needed to elect a holy knight to succeed King Lionheart, who died honorably while helping the nearly destroyed empire. Holy Knight Leon Dragonia. Ariana, the goddess herself, descends and nominates me. Apparently, this is the first time in the kingdom's history that the goddess has directly chosen a holy knight. Beheading the great demon must have been a great honor. It is an honorable path and a demanding position, but I cannot let my knights and people down. I am now Archduke of Dragonia and King of the Lionheart Kingdom. I was implanted with the heart of a lion, a holy relic bestowed by the goddess, swore to protect the Grail, and took up the holy sword and lance to slay the enemies of my kingdom. Year 80. Much has happened in the meantime. There have been 3 great battles against the Orcs, and a strange, curly goblin who became a great demon. I could have ripped its guts out, but I was unlucky, and it escaped through the demon gate. Your Majesty, the Imperial School of Black Magic is said to be conducting experiments again. Are they insane? Imperial bastards, what is wrong with them these days? The Empire's self-indulgence and distrust have reached a peak lately. The annual pilgrimage to the Great Hall of Gods has been cancelled, and a bunch of stupid theocratic independents have taken up residence. It's all the fault of the pagan bastards from the north. We didn't have enough soldiers, so we took in barbarians and their beliefs. In the Lionheart Kingdom, they'll live their entire lives as lowly serfs and die like pigs, but they're treated like people. I feel like I'm watching a group of trolls in a group task. Year 98, the Imperials have gotten their act together. The Emperor's bastard son, performing the secret sacrificial rituals of the evil cult because he didn't want to die, has summoned a Chaos Lord to the Imperial capital. The young cub, barely 70 years old, wanted to live forever, so he killed 3 million people in the capital. Ha! I summoned the knights, holding the holy sword that was still oiled by last year's killed Orcs' blood. Year 21. The world is ending. I have done my best. I slayed demons on behalf of Ariana, the goddess of justice, and sent priests of Demera, the goddess of fertility, to rebuild the farmlands. Hedo, the god of iron and blacksmithing, provided armor and swords for the holy knights, and Pedos, the god of war and flame, descended upon me to burn the ashes of the battlefield. In the 23rd year of the Divine War, a war that began because of the Imperials and slowly led to the destruction of the world, Lord Leon, Lord Antoine, the appearance of my arch-rival remained youthful. As I spoke, by the grace of the goddess, I looked no different than I had a century ago. Be proud, Antoine. Your father has died an honorable death and gone to the feast of the gods. Yes, I see the soldiers and knights looking at me, comforting the son of a dead father. The final battle. No, the final resistance was starting as I heard the thudding of the earth as the enemy marches on, and the mixed emotions in my people's eyes. Horror, fear, helplessness, despair. Alas, goddess, master of the Grail, who has given this lackluster creature a lion's heart, and whose holy sword is lit with a brilliant fire here, are thy lambs trembling with fear. Women soothe their weeping children and swallow their tears. Young men clutch the dying embers of war in their hands, and knights try to leave seeds of hope in the blood-soaked wilderness. But not me, Lord of the Holy Sword, Lance and Chalice. I know that I will not be able to stop the evil that stretches beyond the horizon. Goddess, my goddess, what shall this foolish knight do? Do as thou wilt. My knight, my dear honorable knight, your goddess will be with you to the end. The goddess is with me. I will indeed meet my end, and it will be an honorable one. For the goddess, for honor, and for Lionheart. That winter, in my 121st year, we fought against the 10 million demons that infested the earth. Barbarian serfs were expended as meat shields, and soldiers armed with spears and shields and knights of glory fell with honor. Holy knights ascended one by one, slaying demons until their last breath. Only I, the agent of the Pantheon, chosen by all the gods, slaughtered demons alone to the end. I tore apart countless demon lords and archdemons and shone the divinity of the holy knights upon them. Year 17, winter is not yet over. Year 256, the last remaining demon gate was destroyed, and hundreds of thousands of demons looked at me with desperation in their eyes as they lost their escape route. Lowly demons, you are now trapped in this world with me, and I will annihilate every last one of you. I am not trapped. You're trapped with me. You fucking things. Year 300. Holy shit, I've never seen a gate like this before. Where the hell am I? Relax, Hari. It's been 13 years since we've seen an unmeasurable gate. We don't know what we'll find. I know, but what is there in this world that can't be measured? I don't know. Isn't there some kind of high-level demon? Don't say such horrible things. I was only 300 years old when I encountered Earthlings. TL note, I'll just add this here so that readers won't get confused. Demon ranks: lesser demons, low-level demons, mid-level demons, greater demons, high-level demons, archdemons. Demon Lord. Lord of Chaos is the title of a lord. Run, run. I want to live. I don't want to be annihilated. The demons screamed in an unintelligible language as they charged. The first to come to the forefront were the Hellhounds, a quadrupedal beast, the lowest of demons, but faster than an automobile. They rushed toward Hari, gasping for breath. The Hellhounds leapt. Hari imbued her sword with magic and slashed at the Hellhounds. The enchanted sword sliced through their hides with ease, and the Hellhounds writhed in agony. Good start. She had killed 4 in one fell swoop, and just as she was hoping her efforts would boost their morale, the gutted Hellhounds began to act strangely. What? Hellhounds that were mortally wounded ran upright, dripping with blood, as if they were trying to enter the gate somehow. Stop them, but they were blocked by the hunters. The Hellhounds weren't the only ones. The great swords bumped into the hunters in front of them and crawled toward the gate, barely responding. Coming! He's coming! He's coming! He's coming! No! Run! Over the gate! What? Have these guys been drugged? The demons were defeated with ease, but Hari and the other hunters couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. Even though they know they'll be resurrected after a while, why are they so reckless? As if they were running away. Hari, dodge! That's when something hit the ground with a bang. Something overwhelming that swept across the terrain with only the aftermath of a shockwave, sweeping everyone away, including Hari. What? Hari scrambles to the ground, her mind racing as she realizes what has happened. What the hell? Something had fallen, and Hari recognized it instantly. Ah! Something huge came into view as a torn wing, an axe far beyond human size, with rotten skin, and a gaze that she didn't want to see, even in her dreams appeared. Ah! An archdemon, the nightmare of the demon gate that tore even S-class hunters alive. Move aside, lesser ones, before I kill you all. The demon overwhelmed the hunters with a creepy sonic boom, and the hunters dared not move, stifled by the aura he emitted. Off, it's over. Unmoving legs and rushing breaths, despair and fear overwhelmed them all. Oh, no. If he crosses over to Earth, it has to be stopped. If a monster like that causes a dungeon break in the middle of Seoul, 10 million citizens will be in danger. No. Hari raised her sword. She dragged her unmoving legs forcibly and stood in the face of irresistible despair. A lowly human being. The archdemon clicked his tongue at the sight of Hari before him, but strangely enough, the only emotion she felt was urgency. "Move, bug!" He throws a light blow, literally shooing the bug away, but Hari focused all of her magic to block the blow and... Huh? With a single blow, she bounced all the way to the gate. Black! The ground, which had become a weapon in itself, slashed at Hari's body, and she realized with a single blow that she stood no chance against the archdemon. Humph. As the dying embers flickered precariously, a figure stopped in front of her. At first, she thought it was Chief Kim, but then she realized it was the association's hunters, immobilized by the power of the archdemon. Director Kim, a veteran, was also frozen in place as the archdemon's head rolled on the ground. Huh? Rolling in front of her right now. Is that the head of the archdemon that had just destroyed her? No, Lionheart King. No, no. The archdemon screams in agony as his body burns from the cut, but he wasn't the only one. The demons around him were also shivering in fear. Huh? The archdemon's appearance was strange. In the recorded footage, the archdemon was spitting out curses against humanity, heralding its resurrection as it always did. But what about the one in front of her? No, no, the holy law, my soul is extinguished. It screams and struggles desperately, as if it's actually facing death. I get it. The demons aren't here to cause a dungeon break. They were rushing the gate in a desperate attempt to survive. To get away from someone. Who could make those brutal demons, those infinitely resurrecting demons, tremble? This is the last of you. It was a naked man. Am I seeing things? A man who wore nothing but his bare body and the hilt of a worn longsword. And yet the light from his halo is graciously holy and brilliant. Rise, brave one. The words are archaic, almost dignified, coming from the mouth of a madman. The tone, the demeanor, the posture, everything overrode the man's attire. Just hearing the voice rekindled the dying embers. Ha ha, what the hell is this? What the hell is the man in front of me? Now is not the time to go down. Stand up and fight back. Just hearing his voice made me feel empowered as a surge of energy and vitality lifted my injured body. You, who are you? In response to Hari's question, the brilliant blonde man spoke with a stern expression. I am the Lionheart King, King of the Holy Knights, and agent of the will of the Pantheon. I am Leon Dragonia Lionheart. The man raised his sword. All the demons were slain, demons remaining 0 for. Chapter 3. Chief Kim Jin-soo of the Korean Hunter Association returned home with a huge accomplishment, the closing of the Black Grade Gate, only to be met with unwelcome scrutiny and long meetings. Hari, what do you think? In the lobby outside the interrogation room, Han Hari's exhaustion was evident. They don't seem to believe me. Of course they don't. The Black Gate was cleared by a vanguard that was half expected to die. Moreover, the gate was a notorious demon gate and an archdemon had appeared. They should have been wiped out, not half dead. Kim's immediate supervisor thought to himself, are these assholes organized now? But when all the hunters in the vanguard spoke in unison, their eyes naturally turned to a man. What is your name? A brilliant blonde man seen through a magic mirror. A powerhouse who had defeated the archdemon in a single blow and killed all the demons. Measured as an S-class hunter at the very least, his identity was a survivor, right? Yes, an otherworldly survivor. There were some beings who survived beyond the gate. The gates that had popped up around the world over the past 30 years had something in common. They all had one theme, a world that had fallen or was in the process of falling. Governments around the world speculated that the gates were connected to the records of a lost world or a post-apocalyptic world, and on rare occasions, survivors would cross over. Not just humans, but elves, dwarves, and other fantasy races. People started calling those who crossed over from the other world survivors. But it was a Black Grade Gate. Is it possible for a person to survive there? He's actually right in front of us. Given his extraordinary strength, it doesn't seem impossible. It's also odd that they're arguing about common sense after the apparition of the gates. 30 years ago, there was a cataclysm with monsters bursting out of cracks they'd never seen before. More than half of humanity has died, the land has been poisoned, and cities have been destroyed. Luckily, the mana-blessed beings commonly referred to as the Awakened hunters appeared, and humanity survived, but there was still so much they didn't know about the gate. Survivors. Survivors, unlike the awakened hunters, were innate mana users, and having survived the fallen world, many of them were as strong as or stronger than the hunters. However, they also have a high opinion of themselves, and their culture and lifestyle are vastly different, making it difficult for them to integrate into the modern world. The people of the Sixth Empire, the sages of the forest, and the masters of the underground dungeons must have lived a life completely alien to modern civilization. Therefore, the government has a policy of treating the survivors with the utmost respect and accommodating their wishes. We have to bring him in. He's a very powerful man. Yes, unconditionally. Even an A-ranked hunter would have to risk his life against an archdemon. Aside from the Chaos Lords, the archdemons are the strongest monsters, but Leon defeated one in a single blow. There have been hunters who have repelled them, but none who have overwhelmed them. Even the survivors were afraid of the archdemons and could not overpower them like Leon. Regardless of their strength, survivors have emerged from all over the world, many from cultures completely alien to Earth. At least royalty, judging by the way he called himself investigators, should proceed with caution. I think we might be able to talk to him. You have reason to believe that? Because I sensed it in his voice. He seems nice. Hari hadn't forgotten the warm tone in the man's voice as he pulled her to her feet. He wondered if they were from Earth like he was, but he was certain that none of them had identified themselves as such. "The meal is ready, Your Majesty." An investigator brought the food, and Leon's eyes widened at the sight of it. A thick soup, salt and pepper, in a whitish broth, and kimchi. For a man who had just finished labor on Earth, songtang oxbone soup was like soul food. The broth made from the bones of a cow, salt and pepper added at his discretion, airy white rice, and cabbage kimchi. No, but Leon swallowed the saliva that was pooling in his throat. He reminded himself of his position, even though he hadn't tasted songtang and kimchi in 300 years. Leon Dragonia Lionheart, otherworldly royalty, gent of the gods, guardian of the Holy Grail, and master of the Holy Sword and Holy Spear. How could he possibly be interested in the soul food of the common people? Sipping broth and munching on summon noodles is more like royalty. What kind of food is this? It's a dish called songtang, Your Majesty. It's the soul food of the common people. Leon slammed the desk as if he had been caught red-handed, then stood up and shouted, "You lowly thing, how dare you defile the glorious name of Lionheart?" Yes? The poor investigator shook his head in disbelief, trembling at Leon's overbearing presence. How can royalty be served commoners' food, and how does your kingdom, the Republic of Korea, treat the royalty of another country like that? Oh no, not that. Mr. Park Jong-pal, a 42-year-old investigator, having lived his entire life in the Free Republic of Korea, should know how to treat royalty. Why don't you get out of here, you lowlife? Leon chased the investigator away with a shout and read the common knowledge of Earth that he left behind. During the 300 Years' War, Leon Dragonia Lionheart had slain Chaos Lord Malice, 23 archdemons, and millions of demons. He was a demigod, the guardian of the Grail, an agent of the Pantheon, the lion-hearted king with the heart of a lion, a living saint and wielder of the Holy Sword and Holy Lance, and also the first knight of Ariana, goddess of light and justice. Finally, the former returnee from Earth, who had returned to Earth after a 300-year absence, thought to himself, "This is what happens when you don't have the right faith." It was the duty of royalty to enlighten the foolish commoners.
The Night King Who Returned with a God. Chapter 4, Survivor. Chapter 4, Survivor. Leon Dragonia. Lionheart, the third survivor of the Black Gate in 13 years, has left the Hunters Association and the government in a dilemma. Survivors are extremely rare otherworlders from beyond the gate. They live in different cultures and environments, some of which are oppressive or hostile to Earthlings. There are war heroes sealed in ice walls, and vampires who live for eternity, and also descendants of dragons and dwarves who dug underground tunnels and defended fortresses. Not all of them were easy opponents, and each had their own stubbornness, but they tended to be content to accept that their world had ended and to be treated as survivors. Government's policies toward survivors are the same. Bring them in somehow. If they can't join the government, resettle them within the country. As survivors of a destroyed world, many were highly skilled in combat, and all had something special to offer. Of course, not all survivors were accepted. Some of the survivors had values that were unacceptable to the current human civilization. The newest survivor among them, Leon, was the type of person they didn't really know how to deal with. What do we do? Do we learn court etiquette or something? I've seen some historical dramas. Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari looked at the survivor and benefactor of their rescue with a confused expression. Leon Dragonia Lionheart claims to be the king of the Lionheart Kingdom, and an agent of the gods, a demigod, and an honorable knight. He appears to be a strictly hierarchical figure, as he speaks and acts like a noble. He refuses to eat seollyeongtang and kimchi, saying they are commoners' food. Although he was briefly interested in jjajangmyeon, he refused to eat it, saying it was a lowly dish with ugly soup splashes. They suggested chicken, but he also refused because it's eaten with the hands. He's like a real noble. Yeah, he rejected Earth's food as the food of the common people just by looking at it. As a result, food had to be shipped in from the finest restaurants in the vicinity. Hari, you go first. Me? I don't know etiquette, but he seems to like you a bit. He even complimented you. All he said was that I was brave. Han Hari was brought in to deal with this demanding survivor because of the favorable attention she received from Leon in the gate. Ugh. Hari cautiously approaches Leon, who is gracefully slicing the finest T-bone steak and sipping a 93 red wine. Your Majesty, may I join you while you dine? The swordsman of the hour, sit down. After not being immediately ejected, Hari sighed softly and clenched her fist against the magic mirror for a moment. She was sure her colleagues on the other side were cheering her on. Your Majesty, how do you like your meal? Not bad. The chef put a lot of work into it. I'm so glad you liked it. We committed a mortal sin by serving you dishonorable food. I think you misunderstood. What I've been pointing out to you is the way you've been treating this king. And what does your Majesty mean by that? When royalty meets with representatives of other nations, they should be treated with dignity. It's part of your nation's character. Is that so? Commoners eat as much food as they can carry. They are not so spoiled as to withhold food on the battlefield. But when you stand in front of your men representing the will of the state, you are expected to show them the proper honor. In other words, the food wasn't the reason for his behavior. Hari honestly wonders if he shouldn't just eat it, but when she thought about it, he was right. Their country wouldn't serve McDonald's Big Macs to a visiting head of state. I see. I apologize for my rudeness due to my short learning curve. Never mind. By the way, what was your name again? Yes, Han Hari. Leon watched as Hari mimicked the clumsy historical drama's behavior and didn't tell her to relax. After all, royalty doesn't take kindly to commoners. I have heard stories of this world. Despite his frustration with the investigators, Leon was diligent in gathering information about this world. The investigators tried to explain as much as they could about the planet and its situation, so Leon had some information. Apparently, this place is under some sort of invasion. Gates also appeared in my world too. Is that so? Gates were a common thread in the survivors' eyewitness accounts. Demons, those particular creatures, also haunt this planet, don't they? Yes, they do. Hari had one mission. First, to get him into the Hunters Association, which is part of the Korean government, and the next best thing was to somehow integrate him into this country called Korea. The appearance of a survivor always attracts the attention of governments, and they'll do anything to integrate him into their ranks. In the 21st century, scouting for survivors is at the center of international espionage. Leon's value as a survivor goes without saying, and his combat prowess was already proven by several association employees. The problem is his insistence on a high-status system and his idiosyncrasies, but he's not that incomprehensible when you actually talk to him. Above all, this person has a strong sense of their own worth. Adopting a high-pressure posture with a stranger from another world is a sign of confidence. Among the survivors, there was a tendency to bend to a certain extent to deal with the nations. They can't defeat a nation as a single person, and they know instinctively that there's no good in turning the nation against them. But this man, Leon, is the epitome of pride and self-respect. He boldly demands what he doesn't know and insists that what he needs be given to him immediately, and since he's the last of the noble class, so he's bound to be imposing in his dealings with everyone. I beg your pardon, Your Majesty, but if it pleases you, the government of the Republic of Korea will accept your position. What does that mean? Hari slowly laid out the options for him. Become a hunter for the country, or settle down and find another path. Either way, the society would provide support for the survivor, especially if he became a hunter for the country, emphasizing that the support would be enormous. The higher-ups in the organization don't know about Leon's value yet, but once they do, they'll be happy to bring him to Korea. This place is being invaded by evil races, and as an honorable knight, I must fight back. As long as I am settled in your world, I'm obligated to go to the battlefield. I see. Hari's face brightened. He had more sense than I thought, didn't he? Many of the survivors had refused to enter the gates, either because of the demons or because of the gate. They said they had no obligation to get involved in another world's fight. Yet they took every cent of the survivor resettlement money they could get. At least this one didn't seem to be that unscrupulous. Then, if you join our Hunters Association? No, a king cannot enter in the army of another king. Huh? What does that mean? Hari looked puzzled. In his own mind, Leon didn't think it was in his best interest to join the government. But if he was saying that, didn't that mean he would also refuse to join another hunter's guild? I'll establish a new order of knights in this world. Hari could only nod at Leon's ambitious declaration. This is a weird situation. Synthesizing Leon's story, Kim Jin-soo scratched his head. Still, Hari had a positive assessment. Not bad, isn't it? At least he's willing to fight. Yeah, but he doesn't look like he's trying to leave the country. Survivors in Leon's condition are rare, even among the entire survivor population. He's strong enough and willing to enter the gates, and he's not hostile to the current world. Being a human in a caste system is a flaw, but it doesn't mean he's acting out of character. Still, I was appalled when he said he had to meet the president. You didn't agree, did you? I didn't want to cross swords with him since he can put his sword into subspace and summon it at will. He doesn't even have a subspace pouch, so how does that work? If some random survivor swings a sword at the president, it would be a national disaster. What are you going to do? We'll support him as much as we can. That was the conclusion of the association's meeting. Buy his favor and help him settle in the country as much as possible. For them, it was worth it, even if it meant an astronomical budget. In Korea, the government is too weak. It's all because of the big guilds who only care about money and power. Korea's deep-rooted ills were still making the country sick. By the way, before we entered the Black Gate, hasn't there been a Scarlet Gate recently, up in the Hunan Plains? Yes, the Firebird Guild picked it up. I hope it goes well. If something happens over there, we're in trouble. After the cataclysm, the world was ravaged by dungeon breaks everywhere. The problem with dungeon breaks isn't just the monsters spilling out. When the cracks in the gates opened, they let out miasma along with the monsters. Miasma is a deadly poison that erodes space and curses the land. The land eroded by miasma had to be cleaned up for at least a year before crops could be planted. In other words, a dungeon break in the granary was deadly enough to make or break the year's farming. The Firebird Guild is still home to S-Class Hunter Lee Yongwan, so even a Scarlet Gate isn't that difficult. Yes. Chief Kim Jin-soo wondered if he should tell Han Hari about the intelligence he had received from the National Intelligence Service. The Firebird Guild had been acting suspiciously lately, ever since they had asked the government for an exemption and been denied. Beep! Huh? At that moment, Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari's phones vibrated with the same timing. An ominous siren sounded, beep, beep, beep. Hunan Plain Gate dungeon break. All active employees stand by. Seeing the message, the two of them shouted in unison, Firebird Guild, you bastards! They must have thought that being behind the magic mirror wouldn't make them inaudible, but Leon had a clear grasp of the sound from beyond. His blessed body was already beyond human flesh, and he was a living saint. In other words, a demigod. They're in trouble. It wasn't the dungeon break that was the problem. It was the fact that the dungeon break happened in the granary. Apparently, when a dungeon break occurs, the land becomes contaminated and crops don't grow. I guess they're not here. With that, Leon was convinced that it was absent from the earth. Bad harvests and bad years are a sure sign. Demira, are you good? He asked the goddess hidden in my heart. Here she gladly responded to the agent of the Pantheon. Chapter 5, Divinity 1. It's been a week since a gate appeared in the Hunan Plains, responsible for South Korea's rice production. The Scarlet Gate, with an average difficulty of Class A, was supposed to be a breeze to clear when the Firebird Guild won the bid. If only the Firebird Guild had played their cards right. What the hell is going on? Chief Kim Jin-soo and Deputy Han Hari flew straight to the Hunan Plains by helicopter, where they were met by the Firebird Guild's guild leader, Lee Yong-wan. "Ah, Chief Kim, our rookie Han Hari is also here?" Despite the gravity of the situation, he was relaxed, and from the look on his face, the two had a hunch. This guy. On purpose. There was no doubt. The Firebird Guild had deliberately caused the dungeon break by making the gate attack sluggish. They've been asking for an exemption, and now they're doing this? There has been a lot of friction between the association and the Firebird Guild recently. Throughout this year, the Firebird Guild has consistently demanded exemptions for themselves as one of the top 10 guilds in the country. They demanded an exemption of up to 1 trillion won for income generated from gate byproducts, spirit stone income, and monster materials. The reasoning behind the request was to improve the quality of training and increased cost of healing for guild members. The government, which already provides various benefits to large domestic guilds, was reluctant and rejected guild leader Lee Yong-wan's request. I thought they'd do something, but how could they do something like this in the midst of the uproar over the Black Gate, which hadn't appeared in 13 years? Damn bastards, what kind of land is the Hunan Plain, and how can you do this when the cleanup of the Naju Plain hasn't even been completed? After the gate incident, the world's food trade routes froze to a standstill. The Great Plains, where the initial response to the gate crisis was slow, were contaminated by miasma, and South Korea was no exception. Korea's so-called Naju granary was contaminated, and the reagents to clean it up were astronomical. If this year's farming in the Hunan Plains is ruined, the country's self-sufficiency in food will be cut in half. Han Hari called out in a panic. "Hunter Yong-wan, we need to close the gate right now. It's been a week since the break. Any more than that and I know, the rights to the gate go to the winner, but what can we do?" Guild leader Yong-wan mocked the two with a despicable smile. "Since our guild members are injured, it's unlikely that we can close it in this state, so it looks like the Firebird Guild will have to give up the rights to the Hunan Gate." Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari's faces boiled with anger. They both wanted to shake their fist at the bastard in front of them, but he was an S-class hunter. Even his subordinate Han Hari, an A-rank hunter, couldn't handle him, let alone Kim Jin-soo, a mere B-rank hunter. Bastards! With so many A-ranks you can't close the gate? What do you want to do? What are you trying to say? How did the association deal with the monsters that came out in the first round, and you know that the gate hasn't completely opened yet? The Black Gate hadn't injured any of the people who had been sent in, so the association had some time to spare for the moment. It would be from day 7 to day 10 that the gates with monsters inside would cause dungeon breaks. In other words, the Scarlet Gate of the Hunan Plains hadn't been fully opened yet. Should we take control of the gate right now? No, Mr. Kim, I don't understand why you're doing this. You know that according to the Hunter Law, the guild that wins the bid for the gate keeps it until the 8th day. No matter how much the association wanted to, they couldn't forcibly take away a gate that had already been bid on. The Firebird Guild leader was taking advantage of that. "We'll try until tomorrow, but we have a lot of injured members, so I don't know if we'll be able to capture it." Bastard! Han Hari cursed uncontrollably, but at her remark, Yong-wan smirked and relaxed. It's nice to have an amicable agreement like that, isn't it? The heroes who risk their lives to defend this country of blue, white, and red can't ask for even the smallest benefit. You've already received so many grants and tax breaks. The benefits the government gives to the big guilds are not small, but the problem is that they're insatiable pigs. Why don't we go to Japan? They promise to treat us much better than our shitty country. Yes, this was the problem. In the global battle of the survivors and awakeners, the wealthier nations tried to recruit high-ranking hunters for their own safety, risking diplomatic friction and scheming. To preserve what little power it had, the Korean government tied up the big guilds with lavish benefits, but even that could only go so far. Don't you have the least bit of patriotism? Even if survival of the fittest is the virtue of this world, shouldn't there be at least a minimum of conscience and justice? Patriotism? Justice? Such things have long since gone out of fashion. Don't be childish, my dear Miss Hari. Didn't I tell you at last year's draft that in this world, money and power equal justice? Hari shuddered and swallowed her anger. This was why she joined the Hunters Association, the behavior of the current generation of Korean hunters, who only cared about money and risk, with little regard for the people they harmed, their lack of humanity, justice, and the mockery of anyone who tries to do the right thing, was an abhorrent behavior for a young girl who admired heroes and wanted to protect people. But should she admit it? That the world is all about money and power? If she acknowledged this miserable reality, where would she find justice? What shallow and stupid people you are. All eyes turned to the voice from beyond. Your Majesty Leon, do not call the king by his name, woman. Only honorifics are permitted to you. The man who had followed the two hurried travelers to see the world stood between them, as if he had been listening to the entire conversation. What are you? A European, I suppose? How dare you talk to this king? Eh? Li Yongwan was one of only 20 S-level hunters and the guild leader of the Firebird Guild, one of the 10 largest guilds in Korea. In this day and age, where strength as a hunter translated into power and wealth, no one dared to make fun of him. But, what is it, you bastard? I want you to die. Stop, Hunter Yongwan, he's a survivor. Survivor! At that word, Yongwan's energy subsided. Yes, survivors. They are strangers from a different culture than Earth. Their cultural differences aside, a survivor has great value in and of itself. Not all of them, of course. Yongwan didn't make the foolish mistake of antagonizing a survivor right away. Excuse me, I'm Yongwan of the Firebird Guild. I don't suppose you're the one who came from the Black Gate. The king does not speak twice. Immediately shutting him up, Leon turned to Han Hari and Jin Su. Tell him the problem. What? Don't make me tell you twice. He doesn't know the first thing about gates. Lay out the problem neatly for him. The two men's tempers flared, and the survivor was willing to take matters into his own hands. It's a dungeon break. When a dungeon break occurs, the land will be contaminated by the mass release of miasma. If that happens, there's a possibility that the entire Hunan plain will be contaminated. Even now, the miasma that has already spread is contaminating the land. What's the solution? We must use decontamination agents to cleanse the pollution and clear the dungeon as soon as possible to eliminate the dungeon itself. I understand. It's the polluted land and the expanding gate. Gather your forces. The moment the deadline for the capture of those birds ends tomorrow, I will take matters into my own hands. Are you sure? Leon was an S-class hunter at the very least, and when a powerhouse like that offered to help, what fool would refuse? However, first, the two of them could give him anything he wanted. Should they start by getting him a weapon? No, he already has his own sword. He doesn't seem to have any armor, so should they go to an auction or something? But Leon's request was something completely different. A king of another country can't just waltz into someone else's territory. I'll have to get permission from this country's king himself. Yes? No, that's fine. There is due process in all things. Let's send a message to your king. Even the top 10 guilds in the country don't ask the president to show his face. Yongwan thought for a moment. This bastard, isn't he worse than me? This is the president. Fortunately, the president, who was traveling abroad, didn't fly to the Hunan plains. Leon was relieved to hear that he had gone to ask for assistance with the Black Gate and settled for a brief phone call to wish him well on his return. Your Majesty, all 50 members of the Hunter Association's official raiding party are ready. Han Hari, Chief Kim Jin-soo, the 50 official raiders for the gate, stood before him armed to the teeth. Good. Did you say that the legal deadline for those birds ends tomorrow? Oh yeah. Hari stared at Leon in surprise. His behavior was so unexpected that she had expected the man to just barge through the gate, disregarding legalities. Do you look upon this king as a savage? What? That's not possible. There is a law in civilization called due process. How can I be an honorable knight if I don't obey the laws of the land? Oh, the association staff exclaimed in admiration as Leon swept them off their feet, displaying his natural command. What more can I ask of you than that? Have you prepared? At that, Hari and the others couldn't shake their suspicious glances. Your Majesty, speak. You said to prepare, and I have, but what do you intend to use these for? Leon ordered them to make 100 rice straw dolls. Our precious land has been polluted, and we must cleanse it. What? In all, more than 100 straw dolls were made by the association staff, who hurriedly traveled around the city asking women who had given birth to make them. Are those the wives who made the dolls? Yes, sir. At dawn, more than 100 women who had been urgently requested by the association staff and the city office were lined up. The women ranged in age from young to middle age to octogenarians. Show me the dolls you have made. Some of the women struggled with the command, but the reward offered by the association encouraged them to be generous. Leon began to inspect the straw puppets the women had made. This is ridiculous. To think of calling these metaphysical monoliths dolls. The first straw doll was tossed aside. Ho ho, this one? Do you like it, Your Majesty? It's like a living doll. It's not that well made. I'd rather choose self-destruction soon than live in such an ugly form. The second, third, and 20th dolls were thrown out. It was Han Hari's turn. Did you participate too? Oh yes. I'm good with my hands, so I'm good at making dolls. Hari's puppet was certainly convincing. Despite being made of straw, it was nicely shaped and decorated. I'm surprised you've ever given birth. What? Oh, I'm not married, I'm afraid. I thought it was all right for women. No, you silly thing. The straw doll was brutally torn apart, and the wind whipped it away. After such a harsh criterion, Leon's eyes were drawn to an old woman. Excellent. How many children have you given birth to, madam? 12. So young, so patriotic, and so full of life. Do you have any plans for future children? I'm a widow. If you're as full of life as you are, I'm sure you'll be able to remarry. You're still young, so give it a good 10 years. I'll search first. Normally, I would send a knight to personally deliver a plaque and gift to a woman who has borne more than 10 children, but forgive me if this is not possible. Leon kissed the back of the old woman's hand and placed the straw doll on the altar. The conditions are met. Leon reached into his subspace and pulled out something. As the subspace opened, a goblet appeared in his palm. It was an old goblet, faded and cracked in places, but no one could take their eyes off it. It was as if some divine energy flowed through it. You are the mother of the bountiful land. May the children of the earth dwell in the dolls of the harvest offered to you. The goblet was filled with water, and when the self-filled goblet was placed before the altar, a strange thing happened. The water in the goblet boiled over and gushed out as if it were regurgitated and entered the straw doll. What the hell is going on? The staff of the association, the ladies who made the straw dolls, and the guild members of the Firebird Guild couldn't take their eyes off what was happening in front of them. The sun was rising and the red glow colored the clouds as the day was about to begin again. But on this day, May 24, 2032, the sunset will mark a special beginning for the entire world. Lionheart, my child. The straw doll rises as the divine doll speaks with a benevolent voice. Greetings to Mother Earth Demera, goddess of life and fertility. Divinity has descended upon the earth. The Night King who returned with a god. Chapter 6, Divinity 2. Chapter 6, Divinity 2. Hello, it's been a while since I turned on the stream. This is Mr. Park, a farmer from Jeolla province. What are you doing at this time? When are you going to post traditional content? Farmer Park was a farmer who was also a part-time YouTuber. He is a typical local YouTuber who combines his job with farming, showing rural life such as farming content, frog eating, and wild boar hunting. He was here to see his neighbor Kim's rice field, which he said was recently disrupted by the appearance of the gate. Didn't I mention in the community that Mr. Kim's field is affected by the gate? You did. The Firebird Guild won the bid. Mr. Kim set up a table for the Firebird Guild hunters to eat and drink to make things right. Oh, but I heard that the dungeon break happened. Mr. Park's son-in-law. The Firebird Guild with an S-rank Yongwan and multiple A ranks couldn't clear a Scarlet Gate? Bullshittin'. The viewers' reactions made Mr. Park feel resentful, as he had seen Mr. Kim, the owner of the field, cry unwillingly when he saw the field contaminated by the miasma. Park didn't know much about the hunters, but he knew that Firebird was a famous guild and that they were very good. Still, the dungeon break happened, and Kim's fields were still being contaminated by miasma. It was the farmer's worst fear since the cataclysm 30 years ago. I swear to God, he says, even the people from the association are here, and they're freaking out. All my rice is rotten because it was contaminated by miasma. Mr. Park zoomed in on the camera footage, showing the contaminated land and the association staff confronting the Firebird Guild. It wasn't just the rice that was rotting, but the skeletal remains strewn about, suggesting the remains of skeletons. Really? If it's spreading like wildfire in Hunan, it must be an early harvest this year, but no news? Isn't it fucked up? At least they've increased farming subsidies because food self-sufficiency is down. What's the point of more subsidies? I don't have any land to farm. The answer is smart farms. Buy Dujung Future Food now. Worms out! After that, Mr. Park continued to take videos around the gate. Although the gate was cordoned off, Park was lucky enough to be spotted wandering among the crops, and the viewers' reactions became more serious. Oh, there's a foreigner. Then a blonde man walked into his camera, and the viewers raised questions. Who is this foreigner? Is he from the Firebird Guild? He's poorly equipped for such a thing. He's not even wearing any gear. Then he's an association employee? There are no Europeans in the association, but he's very handsome. Aren't there many women over there? They're all carrying something? Zoom in on them, Mr. Park. Park saw the altar and the straw puppets. Are they doing a ritual? It's not uncommon to see people doing rituals on the land contaminated by miasma. They hope it will cleanse the land, but in the end, the only way to cleanse it is to inject the reagent in time. Is that blonde guy some kind of mage? No, he doesn't look like a mage at all. Mr. Park was strangely uneasy about the man. It's not just his appearance, and even though he was being filmed from a distance, the living saint's radiance exuded an air of nobility. He instinctively felt a sense of authenticity that he doesn't get from the upper class and actors he often sees on TV or the internet. The modern aristocracy may be high achievers and entrepreneurs, but their elegance and pedigree can't replicate the real thing. Then, in the next moment, Mr. Park, a farmer, witnesses a moment that will change his life. Visas Leon is the first knight of Ariana, the goddess of light and justice. All the previous Lionheart kings of the divine knightly kingdom of Lionheart were Ariana's first champions in her service. But in the kingdom of Lionheart, where harmony with and service to the gods is a virtue, some gods are essential to the faith, so naturally, the Lionheart kings are also their champions. Lionheart, my child. Greetings to you, Demira, goddess of life and fertility. Leon did the courtesy of dropping to one knee, offering his respect and reverence to the crested figure. Demira's stature in the pantheon is high. She is the embodiment of all life and the goddess of abundance. As everyone struggled to understand the voice that echoed from the straw doll, Demira, the god within the straw doll, spoke. This new land is also being invaded by evil. The land is polluted. Yes, evil species exist in this land, but I fear that the absence of divinity and the lowly pigs will stain the eyes of the goddess. Leon's first emotion upon returning to Earth was disappointment. Being an awakened or a survivor is secondary. He had only a faint memory of the 20 years he had been alive. However, when he returned, he found himself faced with the domination of a guild and an incompetent government, which was both pathetic and sad. Ignorance and greed are not necessarily sins, such is the nature of mortal life. What do you intend to do about it? I don't like it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to drive out the legitimate rule. This land elects its leaders through the pathetic means of voting, but that's the way it's supposed to be, and that's the way it is. It was the only reason he recognized the president's authority. The incompetence of a man who can't handle a bunch of knife wielders is appalling, but the right to rule is sacred, and he intends to follow due process. I will establish parallels between rights and duties on this earth, then I will teach the ignorant and guide them on the right path. Earth, his home, where power and money have become justice, was a land devoid of divinity above all else. Leon will build a new pantheon on this land. He would restore the gods of the now defunct pantheon and create a new order of holy knights. To do this, he would need faith, countless followers, priests, and true believers to worship in the Great Hall. Oh, don't you have a favor to ask of this mother? Demira read Leon's intentions and smiled. He was no longer a champion of light and justice alone. When the gods of the pantheon chose the Grail Keeper Leon as their vessel and decided to put all of their divinity into the pantheon within his heart, the gods staked everything on Leon. They trusted him to slay the hordes of evil and survive to the end. He did so admirably for 200 years, and then saw his chance in a new land, so the gods of the Great Hall will grant him whatever he wishes. They will trust the greatest knight of all time to uphold their honor and sanctity. Yes, Demira, the free peoples of this land are suffering from a foul influence called miasma. Please heal and cleanse this land, though it is not your will. Demira, the straw doll, had divinity at her fingertips. It was a small blessing, nothing compared to the faith of so many, but in a land where faith is absent, it would be a great miracle. You are my priest and our champion. The earth of this world might not be this mother's flesh, but if you spread my divinity and replace this barren land with my flesh, everything on this earth will be your ally. The land is infused with divinity. A living saint, a demigod, the Lionheart King, and the Mother of Life blesses the land. The earth is life. It is the source of life and the beginning of a world of abundance. The divinity of the earth, with its infinite energy, created a marvelous sight. The earth, contaminated with miasma, rotted, and the rice that had come in was destroyed, but the unforgiving divinity sprouted new life. At the same time, neither the contaminated soil nor the rotten rice could stop their growth, for the saint's hand had fulfilled the rightful duty of all life rooted in the earth. Leon said to all those who watched from afar, "See and realize, you uneducated and ignorant humans, this is the world with the divine." The procession of rice rose like gold while trembling hands and mouths clasped together at the miracle of life that had come forth from the polluted earth. Be fruitful and multiply. It is the rightful duty of the living, and this bountiful land is a testament to the covenant to all eternity. Han Hari, Kim Jin-soo, and the rest of the staff of the Hunter Association were dumbfounded by the miracle that was unfolding before their eyes. How could a miasma pollute the land? How can life not grow in a polluted land? All of their questions led to one conclusion. A malevolent force beyond the comprehension of human common sense or technology was at work to ravage the world. Crops cannot grow on contaminated land. Cleanup efforts are possible, but they are offset by a significant investment of precious hunter mana. You can't grow crops on land contaminated with miasma. That's modern common knowledge, and why modern humans cling desperately to printed cultures and palm farms. As more and more land becomes contaminated because of the dungeon breaks, humanity's food self-sufficiency rate will plummet. What the? Hari and Kim Jin-woo couldn't believe their eyes at what they were seeing as the golden crops on the ground swayed gently in the wind. The golden fields on the ground shone brilliantly, as if the fact that they had just been contaminated was a lie. "Chief, this is real rice. I see it too." The rice grew in an instant, but it's not just the Hunters Association that is horrified. So was the leader of the Firebird Guild, Lee Yong-wan, who was trying to intimidate the Hunter Association by polluting the land. "Ha! You don't realize that crops grown by magic are poisonous." Yong-wan had a point. Ever since the cataclysm, mankind had been researching ways to grow crops with magic. However, the enchanted crops were inedible to ordinary humans and acted as toxins. What an ignorant thing to say. This is a crop blessed by the gods themselves. How can you judge it as poison? It's just a straw doll. I forgive ignorance only once. Do not defile the goddess with your light tongue. There was something powerful and submissive about Leon's words. Above all, the implicit wariness he felt toward the survivors kept him from acting in vain. Shit, I shouldn't be doing this. The Hunan Plain was a hostage, and just as the association had suspected, the Firebird Guild had deliberately induced a dungeon break. The top 10 Korean guilds still received countless benefits, but they wanted more, and the centerpiece was the exemption for dungeon byproducts. Right now, they want an exemption worth 1 trillion won a year, but they're only going to get bigger and bigger, eventually demanding a complete exemption. In the end, if you scare the government with the excuse of dungeon break, the government will have no choice but to accept it, even if it means protecting the country and its people. But it was all ruined by one survivor, and Yong-wan wanted to say something. "Let's check it out," he said. "I think it needs to be verified for the safety of the people who will be eating that rice." His intentions aside, the argument was true. Crops grown with magic are inedible to normal humans, so of course it needed to be tested. "I'll lend you my guild's appraiser. I'm curious to see what you've grown in 1 second. Yong-wan smiled his trademark mean smile and waited for the results, looking forward to the moment when he could unmask that shameless stranger. If the crops showed even a trace of magical energy, he would call him a fraud. "Go and check it! Quick, quick! Our guild's appraisers are excellent." Just as Yong-wan was expecting the appraiser's mouth to say that people couldn't eat this rice, the appraiser's mouth, which was covered in cold sweat, finally dropped. "The appraisal result is rare." "Huh? Every single rice grade is rare." "The appraisal result is rare." "Huh? Each and every one of these rice is a rare grade." Everyone was stunned by Kang's words, and some didn't understand what he was talking about. It sounded too unrealistic. But when he said that this rice can even cure cancer, everyone's minds were blown. "Is it true?" "It's true." Hari couldn't keep her mouth shut, but she turned to Leon, who was talking to a straw puppet imbued with Demera's divinity, as if he didn't need to listen. "Your Majesty, insolence. This king, a priest, is talking to a goddess. I'm sorry, I have committed a sin worthy of death." "It's all right. How can a mere mortal know how to treat a goddess?" The voice was merciful, like when she heard Leon's voice at the Black Gate, and it had encouraged her, and she felt warm inside just hearing it. "Since Demera says so, I will forgive you this one time." "Yes." She bowed her flat head and looked at the two of them. The straw doll was becoming limp. "I think I've done my part now, and I'll go back to sleep. Thank you. The grace of the Earth Mother Goddess, I will always swallow it sweetly." Ah, this mother has one last nagging word. The divine voice sounded strained, as if it had suddenly lost its strength. Inhabiting the doll, she spoke to her champion one last time. Don't go off and starve. With that, the straw doll collapsed and Leon closed his eyes and reflected on the Earth Mother's grace. After what seemed like an eternity, the flat-faced Hari cautiously raised her head. That, Your Majesty? What is this? Divinity. Divinity? What do you mean? Are there no gods in this world? Hari didn't know how to answer Leon's question. Of course there are religions on Earth. Jehovah, Allah, Buddha. Isn't Buddha a god? Whatever. Religion exists, but she'd be careful about saying that God exists. If it weren't for him, the crippled government would have been forced to give in to our demands. He wished that Leon would die in the gate. Huh? Suddenly Yongwan remembered the gate he had been wandering around for days. This isn't so bad. Vice Guild Leader? Don't worry about it, but we have a gate to close at the end. That's right, I was a bit out of shape in the middle, but The Vice Guild Leader who had attacked the Scarlet Gate with him had the same expression on his face when he read Yongwan's intentions. There's only one A-rank hunter, huh? If so, the result was obvious. That gate boss would never be defeated by the Hunter Association's floaters. But if there's a survivor of that, he's a tough nut to crack, even for me. He's a buffer, with a blessing on the land. They say he's the king, so he can't be much of a fighter. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Gate strategies are not for nothing. You need to understand the concept of the gate and prepare accordingly. They will never be able to defeat the boss of that gate, and if they can't defeat the boss, they can't close the gate. Two twisted smiles greeted the Association raiders as they departed in search of a way to die. That Leon had a vague idea of what a gate capture was. Every gate revolves around a mission, and by clearing that mission, you can close the gate. That is, get rid of the gate. Most of them have a boss mob. No, a boss, and defeating it will often close the gate. A diary of boss encounters. I like that. Hari didn't know how to answer, so she remained silent. I've heard that those birds have been attacked before, but there are quite a few monsters, aren't there? Leon said, looking at Kim Jin-soo and the Association hunters fighting at the front as skeletons had been charging at them from the gate, armed with swords and shields. That's a feature of this gate. A feature? Yes, in most gates the total number of monsters can be reduced, but in special cases such as skeletons, zombies, demons, they respawn indefinitely as long as the boss monster remains intact. I see, so it will only end when the boss is defeated. I understand. Hari guessed that this was a command gate and that there would be a commander controlling the skeletons. Kim Jin-soo thought so too, and as a rule of thumb, the odds were in their favor. If there's a high probability, does that mean that other things will appear with a low probability? Yes. For example, a very powerful commander, just as Han Hari was about to explain more. A bizarre ringing sound that seemed to tear at the eardrums was heard. What? Chief Kim Jin-soo and Deputy Han Hari turned pale. The other association hunters did the same. Lee Yongwan, you son of a bitch, why didn't you tell me that? Dungeon break begins. You are sentenced to death. The time limit for all life within the gate begins. Commander Knight Doulahan advances with his army. Defeat Commander Doulahan. Time remaining, 3 hours. DUN 0 minutes. From the beginning of the dungeon break, the entire army has begun to march toward the capture point.